mustard poultice. Has anybody here made a mustard poultice? Very old-fashioned, ancient, as a matter of fact, and it's a good cure for bronchial issues. It helps because, well, I'll start at the beginning. What you do is you make a paste of a little bit of flour and a whole bunch of mustard. The mustard seeds all ground up. And as you know, if you were to taste it with your finger, it's hot, it'll burn you. Then you spread it on like a cloth diaper or a dish towel, just the width of the person's chest that you're going to put it on. And you put another layer on top of it, you stick it in the oven and heat it so that it becomes quite hot. So the mustard's hot itself, and then the oven heats it even more. And then you lay that baby on the person's chest, and it's very hot. You even get a burn from it, but it's supposed to loosen things up in the chest and heal you. Well, my new husband told me that that was part of my wifely contract with him, is that I had to make a mustard poultice whenever he had bronchial trouble. And he grew up in Taft, California, where there was a parasite that came with the winds off the desert, and he breathed that his whole childhood, so he had bronchial troubles a lot, and I made a lot of mustard poultices. Can't say it was my favorite thing to do. But when we read this parable about the mustard seed and about the seed that is planted and grows, we know not how, we are supposed to go back in time to when people really lived on these plants and also look at the words that Jesus actually used. This parable is used in the 3 synoptic gospels, so it's in Mark and Luke and Matthew, and they all say different things. So since this is Mark's, we'll focus on Mark's version of this story of the mustard plant. The word he uses for plant, we translate shrub, but it can also be translated as vegetable. So the vegetable grows into this great big tree. Those of us who lived in the South know how to cook collard greens and mustard greens. How many have eaten mustard greens? Well, hey, that's more than the first service. That's fabulous. So you get one of these giant pots and you put as many mustard leaves into that pot as possible. But the leaves you're putting into the pot have to be taken from the plant before the plant goes to seed. So you're not going for those seeds. You have to catch the leaves before it seeds, or else they have a very bitter taste. So you hope that you bought the right batch at the farmer's market, or you go out and pick your own before these plants go to seed. You fill the pot up with these leaves so it comes all the way to the top. Pour a significant amount of water in and boil that baby for 6 to 8 hours, right? With a ham hock or a whole pound of bacon, as I was taught, cut up and cooked into that watery greens mess that is so southern. My lips are watering, my mouth is watering right now. They're delicious. They're also very nutritious. So the listeners to this story would know several things about the mustard plant. They would first of all know that the seed is completely insignificant. It doesn't look like anything. It's not pretty. It's just a little brown lump, kind of like a peppercorn. And if you grind it and use it in mass, it's a medicine for the chest, but you can also eat it on hot dogs, sausages, German sausages. A lot of us like mustard. It's medicinal. That part is medicinal, not only with the heat, but when you ingest it, it's good for you. And then there's the leaves themselves that are the vegetable. But what you notice about this particular mustard plant is that it becomes a home for all the birds of heaven. And that Jesus says this is a symbol of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is this teeny tiny little seed that is insignificant, and it is this fully established vegetable or shrub that has enough branches to give shelter to the birds. And this should remind you of that story in John that we hear in funerals about how my Father goes to prepare a place for you. In his house there are many dwelling places. This tree of life then becomes this symbol of dwelling places for the birds of the air. It also is providing shade for anybody who goes under. If you stand and look at this symbol like a single dimension, You can envision a cross coming up as the main stalk of this plant and the two main branches that come out. So it also becomes for us a symbol of Christ's crucifixion, his resurrection, and his ascension into heaven. So you can see the outlines of Jesus superimposed on this plant. And indeed, this symbol of life or tree of life is used in many other cultures and is a very positive sign of being connected to the earth. You'll see this symbol it's called the giving tree or the living tree. You'll see it with the roots going way down into the soil. So if we use it as a symbol of Christ, Christ becomes the living tree with the roots grounded in this earth because he meets us on this plane. We are on the earth. And the branches reaching all the way to heaven. So he becomes the connection between heaven and earth through his treeness. But since this is a living plant, it also is calling living animals to live within it. So the birds coming to live within it are the community. It's all of us, that we're invited to be part of this living tree. The position that we take in prayer looks very much like the giving tree. This is the ancient prayer posture. Legs a little further apart so you're planted solid and the wind can't blow you over, or a subway turning around in the subway can't roll you over. And your hands are extended into the heavens. What this says to me is a very meaningful symbol for me, is that the tree, it was a dead tree that crucified Jesus. It was people that crucified Jesus. And the deadness in them is what caused it, that they couldn't admit to what he was saying, that it rang true for everybody who met him. That what was happening through his gift of himself was this self-giving. And in that living nature of Jesus and of the faith that we get with him, we are implanted with that vision. We become the tree of life. So that it is we who are sheltering those who need shelter. We that are grounded, that people come to and ask for prayer. We who are connected to heaven, because we go to church, people come to us and they say, would you say a prayer for me? And we are called to say a prayer. All of us have experienced this. We look at the tree of life as a symbol of life for ourselves because the tree is Jesus. But Jesus is saying, and it's us too, that our community are the birds in the tree, but our prayerful self is the tree itself. So from tiny little beginnings, whatever or how insignificant you think your gifts are, take a look in the mirror because you are also the giving tree.